So it says here, Europe's reluctant reset with Turkey. And the article is talking about how Europe needs Turkey. Because Turkey, as I said, they have a big youth population. They have a growing and vibrant defense industry. They have a very strong military. So if Germany is going to revive... Music is loud. Let me lower it down, sorry. If Germany is going to do a major revival of its militarism, and I believe that it will, they are going to need Turkey. Because with Turkey, now you have an access. You have a very strong ally. You have an ally that hates Russia. You have an ally that will agree to do things like putting troops in Crimea, because that's what Turkey wants to do, because Crimea used to be a part of the Ottoman Empire. So you're going to be seeing, and I've talked about this numerous times, but you're going to be seeing this Turco-European axis forming. Because someone said in the comments, can Turkey have this massive empire and do all these military actions by itself? No, Turkey needs partners, just as Germany needs partners. So there's going to be a deepening of military ties between the Turks and the Germans, just like in World War I. And it says here in this article that the threat from Russia is mounting. Ukraine is on the defensive. Despite pledges of new spending, arms productions remains too low for comfort. Fear not, Europeans. Recep Tayyip Erdogan has your back. It has become clear once again. Now, here is a quote from Erdogan. Look at what it says here. It has become clear once again, Turkey's president and Europe's prospective savior said on April 11th, that European security is unthinkable without Turkey. This is what Erdogan said. He said that European security is unthinkable without Turkey. And he's right. He is right, because Russia needs that access into the Mediterranean. You deepen security ties with the Turks, then you can use Turkey to hit Russia from the south, and the Germans can hit the Germans, and Germany's European allies could hit Russia from the west. So it's a pincer effect. That's what they want. And the article goes on to say, on security cooperation, rearmament, and Ukraine, Europe needs Turkey's help now more than ever. On defense, Turkey gets plenty of bang for the buck. The country's arm industry has been booming. Armored vehicles, attacks, and surveillance drones. Warships, small arms, and munitions are flying off Turkish assembly lines. Despite delays, Turkey's battle tank, the Altay, the stealth fighter jet, the Khan, are expected to enter service by the end of the decade. So basically by 2029, the Turks are going to have what? Their own fighter jet in operation, their own tank in operation. And this is about what? Independence of American military control. Independence away from the American military-industrial complex. Make way for the rise of Turkey's military-industrial complex. That's what this is about. Make way for the rise of Turkey's military-industrial complex. And not just Turkey's, but Germany's as well. Rheinmetall is Europe's biggest defense company. It's in Germany. And what did the CEO of Rheinmetall say recently, Mr. Paperger, Mr. Armin Paperger? What did he say recently? He said, Germany is going to spend €1 trillion on its military. $1 trillion. So we have the rise of the Turco-European or the Turco-Germanic axis. Add to that the revival of German militarism. Add to that the rise of Turkey's military-industrial complex. Add to that all of the other European militaries who will be joining Germany. Add that to the fact that Europe has a population of over 500 million people. You got yourself a very, very dangerous situation for Russia. Very dangerous situation. Interest in doing business with Turkey has perked up across Europe. Baykar, a Turkish drone maker, recently signed a joint venture deal with Leonardo, an Italian defense giant, a move that could help the company grab a bigger slice of Europe. Turkey has the industrial base needed to meet at least some of Europe's demand for ammunition. Its army has the muscle and experience. Europe needs to build up its security architecture, whether inside or outside. So Turkey can help Europe rebuild its military infrastructure, just given the fact that Turkey has more experience. Turkey has been involved in Turkey has more recently been involved in conflict, more so than the Europeans have. And Turkey, like I've said, they have a growing military industrial complex. In other words, also, you have to factor in also the Bayraktar drone, which proved to be very effective in the war in Nagorno-Karabakh, and also the fact that the Bayraktar drone is cheap and yet it's efficient. And it was used to kill Russians in the battlefield in the war in Ukraine. So the Europeans are eyeing the Bayraktar drone to use against the Russians. And they've already effectively done this by proxy in Ukraine. The Turks at least have. The Turks have. But the Europeans want to do the same thing. And the Europeans are going to develop their own drones. I mean, that's just inevitable. Europe is also counting on Mr. Erdogan's help in Ukraine. Turkey has offered to send troops there as part of a bigger peacekeeping force. I've talked about this before, but Turkey wants to send troops into Crimea. Why? Because Crimea used to be a part of the Ottoman Empire. It says here, Turkey has offered to send troops there as part of a bigger peacekeeping force in the event of a ceasefire, given Turkey's record of countering Russia, notably in Syria and Libya. That is not an offer to sneeze at. Turkey is even more interested in the Black Sea, and that's where it has access into the Mediterranean, where it would want to avoid a naval buildup either by Russia or NATO. At the end of the war over Ukraine, they are determined to take the lead in any maritime peace force, says a Western diplomat. So you have here a Western diplomat that is saying that Turkey wants to take the lead in the Black Sea. And who else is in the Black Sea? Russia. What else is in the Black Sea? The Bosphorus Strait. What is the Bosphorus Strait? It's a strait that belongs to Turkey that leads into the Sea of Marmara. What does the Sea of Marmara lead into? It leads into the Aegean Sea. What does the Aegean Sea lead up to? It leads into the Mediterranean. So the war over the Black Sea is a war over access into the Mediterranean. Russia does not want to remain landlocked within the Black Sea. It wants free and all access for its navy to enter the Mediterranean from the Black Sea. Right now, Russia has Syria. It has the Tartus. It definitely doesn't want to lose that because that's its free access into the Mediterranean. So the Russians definitely want to keep their position in Syria so as to maintain their access way into the Mediterranean. The problem is that Turkey still controls the access way into the Mediterranean from the Bosphorus. So if Russia wants to have the ability to freely have its naval ships access the Mediterranean from the Black Sea, it cannot do so without permission from Turkey. This is what Russia wants to get rid of. So the war between Russia and Turkey is going to be, to a great extent, fought over access into the Mediterranean. This is a huge, huge deal. So it says here that for Turkey, cooperation with Europe, both in defense and in Ukraine, makes plenty of sense. Turkish companies would jump at the chance to tap into some of the hundreds of billions in defense spending the EU hopes to unlock over the next 4 years. So, like I've said many times, the Germans have said that there's going to be no limits to military spending in Germany. So there is the rise of German militarism. And it says here that Turkey under Erdogan has been something of a loose cannon within NATO. The country held up Finland's and Sweden's accession to the alliance, blocked NATO defense plans for Poland and the Baltics, and has attacked American-backed Kurdish insurgents in Syria. Now, what did I say about the Kurds recently? I talked about this last time. The Turkish government is enemies with who? The PKK and with the Syrian Democratic Forces, the SDF. Both are Kurdish forces. And for 40 years, Turkey has been at war with Kurdish terrorists, Kurdish fighters who fight the Turkish government over territory. 40,000 people were killed in this conflict. It was a 40-year-long conflict, so very long conflict. And America goes into Syria in the name of what? In the name of helping the Kurds to fight ISIS. And what did Turkey tell the Americans? They said, don't worry about it. We'll make a deal with the Kurds. And we'll take care of ISIS. And what happened? The Turks made a deal with the PKK. They then made a deal with the SDF, in which the SDF agreed that it would become an integral part of the Syrian armed forces. In other words, the SDF made a deal with the Turks in which the SDF just gave up the fight, effectively. So then, now Turkey has the position to tell the Americans, you guys don't have to be here anymore. We got this taken care of. We're not going to kill the Kurds. We're going to work with the Kurds. We're going to fight ISIS together. Because now the Kurds are going to be a part of the Syrian armed forces. So what does that lead the Americans? Where does that lead the Americans? It leads the Americans to do exactly what they have done recently, which is to commence a military withdrawal out of Syria. And we've already been seeing this. So all of this is leading to a revived Turkish power in the Middle East. It's going to be to the devastation of Israel. But the thing is that no one gives a shit about Israel anymore. Unless you're a Zionist boomer. How can Russia even win then? The odds are stacked against them. You're right. You are absolutely right. If you have Germany, Turkey, all of these European auxiliaries joining Germany, and then on top of that you have Turkey's allies, and they're all going against Russia, the odds would be against Russia. And Russia's going to have a very, very tough time. There's going to be a lot of casualties, a lot of death. It's going to be ugly. But I think that there's going to be a miracle. Just like when the Russians fought the Germans. I mean, how many millions of Russians died fighting? How many tens of millions of Russians, Soviets died fighting the Germans? I mean, just the Germans alone. 30 million civilians died, and that's just civilians. And then you got millions upon millions of Russian / Soviet soldiers who were killed. But still, the Soviets won. In Ukraine, Turkey has been opportunistic, providing one side with drones and corvettes, but taking advantage of Western sanctions, which it has refused to apply to boost trade with the other. But what a difference 3 months of MAGA can make. Turkey has not changed. Everything else has. Suddenly, compared with Donald Trump's America, Turkey comes off as a dependable ally. There is just one catch. One key democratic indicator. On key democratic indicators like civil liberties, the rule of law, and press freedoms. Yeah, so Turkey put this guy, Mr. Imamoglu, in prison. And God knows what that's going to lead to, right? Is it going to lead to a revolution? Is the AK party going to be overthrown? Is the AK party only going to get more powerful? Whatever happens, it's going to be no good when it comes to this sort of thing. If the Islamists take over Turkey, it's going to be no good. If the secular nationalists take over, it's going to be no damn good. What I see for Turkey is just an amalgamation between nationalism and Islamism, just like you had in the Ottoman Empire during World War I. Luckily for Mr. Erdogan, the European Union, this is very interesting, the European Union has no intention of letting the latest crackdown get in the way of its new security first outreach to Turkey. So Erdogan says, yeah, I'm going to put this guy in prison. I'm going to do crackdowns. We're going to destroy democracy. Who gives a shit? And do you know who else doesn't give a shit? The Europeans don't give a shit because they're up against the Russians. They are. They're up against the Russians, and they need all the help they can get, and they definitely need Turkey because Turkey guards the Mediterranean. Turkey can lock Russia into the Black Sea. Turkey can prevent the Russians from entering the Mediterranean. Turkey is an absolutely necessary ally if you are going against the Russians. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. It's very explicit. It's very black and white. Even if the anti-migrant, anti-Muslim fanatics in Germany take complete control over Germany, Germany would still maintain ties with the Neo-Ottomans because of its geostrategic location. It's that simple. It really is that simple. So since the end of the Cold War, the EU and Turkey have spent decades talking past one another. Turkish leaders, most recently Mr. Erdogan, have argued that the country's strategic role as a gatekeeper to the Middle East, the Black Sea, and the Caucasus should be enough to earn its place in the bloc. Ooh. Yeah, gatekeeper to the Middle East, the Black Sea, the Mediterranean, and the Caucasus. Yes, Turkey has a lot of leverage and has a lot of geopolitical power. And it has a very wide presence. It's not just in the Caucasus. It's not just in the Middle East or in the Black Sea or in the Mediterranean. Turkey is also in Africa.